In your opinion, you don't believe God exists. If you're asking me, why do I believe that my God would create such a thing so evil in your eyes?
Yeah.
I believe that this. Let me first start with that. I do believe in an afterlife, and I don't want to like say everything because I don't want to offend anyone.
God just put us all in paradise.
Are there 50
But
billion
because-
people in paradise?
No.
Or 100?
I mean, I'm not God. I don't know who's pushing to paradise or not. But
The
well,
Quran is no guide at all?
no, my Quran. I mean, not like.
What happens to
Does
the
the
souls of the
Quran
children who
help
died?
decide who gets into heaven?
Yeah.
And you accept the Quran?
Yeah.
So you know who's getting into heaven, right? It's not 100 billion, it's not 50 billion, it's a smaller number than that, right?
It's people that worship Him because He created.
Man, what happens to the 50 billion children who can't worship Him because they died before they were old enough to do so? What would happen to their souls?
The
There are
Muslim
three-
person believes that they're born believing. They're not dead.
Okay, so you can get it. So why didn't you just do that with everybody?
I don't know. I'm just telling you.
Because,
Okay, thanks.
because we're humans. Because we're humans. And humans have, I mean, we all know this, a higher intellectual thinking level than animals.
Jane, are you going to tag on here or you got a different question?
I mean, I feel really bad because I don't want
There's
to.
there's a really simple thing that I find to narrow this whole thing down. Why create anything at all if the act of creation induces suffering, eternal suffering, torment in so many?
Eternal as in.
Wouldn't it be better to not create anything?
Okay.
Not necessarily hell, but I mean, he created 50 billion kids who died before. Why would it not be better to create nothing?
Because if we lived in such a perfect world, I mean, okay, honestly, I'm not a scholar, and I feel sometimes like,
Me neither.
I honestly feel like if I answer and I answer wrong, I don't want to like misrepresent my religion or anything.
Fair.
So that's why I'm
Well, we are
really
being a
afraid
bit
to
unfair.
answer.
I mean, it's
Yeah.
Christian theology that promise the
Because
combination of
I know that a
omniscience
lot of, yeah, this
and
through science, I know that,
omnibenevolence.
like, before time.
No. The Islamic God is not held to the same standards. It's
Because
the
I know
God of
that
the Bible.
in Christianity,
There-
people
there's
that
no
practice
guarantee
science were
in Islam
thought
that
evil.
you know you have a beneficent God who promises an individual good outcome. That's not in the Quran.
But is that Islamic?
That's only promised to Muslims.
Is that Islamic God omniscient? Can you do everything?
Yes.
Now, if you had the choice to prevent a child from suffering, would you do it?
Yes, I mean.
Then you're more moral than your Islamic God.
Yeah, you're right there.
No, no,
You're
no,
better
no.
than your God.
That's what we were
Literally
pushing
true.
earlier.
No, because I mean,
Humans have driven juvenile mortality rate down to just a few percent. We're more moral than God.
that's no, because things have happened to me in my life. So many things, and I don't want to say it, but like, it's terrible things that happened to me in my life. And I don't, honestly, I believe that if it weren't for religion, but my faith in my religion, I don't think I can probably get through it. I know that things happen for a reason because God wills it to
So
happen.
the
for
God
me.
that killed our 50 million kids is favoring you.
I think you're stronger than that.
Okay.
What do you- I
We
don't
need to move on to other people
Before,
without cancer.
before this ends up here, if I could get this.
Go Jane and then Amir.
Well, actually, to further that point, I would like to ask, then what is your measure of a God? Its power or the way in which he wills it? Because are you paying respect and deference to the magnitude of his power that he has power over, like, sending you to heaven or hell, or do you have respect and deference for its morality? Because to bring this point further, I got that not only that, well, the improbability that there is a God, but even if there is a God, the problem is I don't agree with his moral principle.
That's the thing, like, it's, I mean, am I the only non-atheist, or like?
No, there's, I'm more agnostic for what it's worth.
Okay, but I don't want to, I just want to, like I said, like, I don't want to misrepresent my religion in any manner. I'm not a scholar, and I'm not, like, I do know what the fundamentals of it are, and I do practice that. But because of my religion, I know that if something happened to me, as if I know that if I had cancer, first of all, we believe that this world is not the actual world. Like, we believe that this world is like, we have to live like we're a traveler, as if like.
A place to wipe your feet until you get to the real world?
What do you mean?
What kind of cosmic joke is that? The one and only life that we're absolutely certain that we're going to get. The one and only existence that we're sure we are going to get. Turns out to be just a place to wipe your feet before the real world begins?
See,
And where
that's-
most people
that's-
get
That is
screwed in the
immoral.
process.
See, that's where we're different, because I don't believe this is one certain absolute light. I do believe there are two.
How do
You believe.
You're
Not
certain,
certain.
you're certain that
Well,
there's another light?
I am certain.
How are you certain?
I am certain, I mean.
Have you seen
No, but there is, I mean, I don't want this to make it a debate between like Islamic view and atheists, honestly. The fundamentals of this debate is what's the source of human morality. And I believe that people are good because anyone can be good. I'm not saying that you need anything to be good, but what I believe personally is that good is, there has to be a universal good.
Let me do this real quick, because I don't want this to end up being a perceived attack on you or a big back
Yeah,
and forth.
no, I understand.
People were trying to get you to think about things, and one of your responses was that you're not a scholar, you're not a theologian. Nobody was asking you questions about that type of thing. What they were asking was you as a person.
Okay,
What
yeah,
do
I just
how
wanted
do
to
you feel
clarify
about
that.
this? And while we may not reach any kind of conclusion about this today, these types of questions, and thank you, that was a better way of phrasing what some of us have
Yeah,
been
thank you
trying
for
to
that.
say. When you're going about it, it's like I was trying to mention during the debate. Ultimately, we are the ones who are determining what's moral or immoral. We're making this decision. I have to be convinced that something is moral or immoral. I can become convinced for good reasons or bad reasons. I am convinced that even if the Christian God exists, or even if the Islamic God exists, that I am more moral than they are, based on what I've heard about them, both from the lips of adherents and from the sacred texts that have been presented. And I find that,
And from the real world, which is the ultimate test.
yes.
Because, well, I don't believe that religion is the problem. I believe people are the problem. People want to use, twist the name of religion.
Well, it might be religious people are the problem.
I'm going to ask you to do us a favor. By the way, you're gutsy for standing with
Yeah,
us.
thank
We're
you.
Yeah,
proud.
So I like
Take
to-
it in, take it in.
But one thing I would ask you to do is,
I mean, I've read books. I've read The God Deliverer. My uncle gave me that for he's an atheist.
ma'am,
Amir, are you
the
gonna
one
chime in
thing
here?
is think about those 50 million kids. Start thinking about it. And you can go to my website, it's Gregory Paul Religion on Google, and it's theology and philosophy. Read that, start thinking about it.
I mean, I do think about it, honestly.
Oh, please do.
I do believe that we as humans have to be as human as possible and help our brothers and sisters in race, of human race.
You should call him the Atheist Experience. I think you'd be a great guest on your
Of
show.
what?
I just,
She's welcome to call it.
Well, what? I said what?
Okay, Amir's been waiting.
What do you think about Father's use of the word atheist project? Do you think
He was confusing several things. First of all, the only atheist project is to be rational and sensitive to the evidence. I think what he was mostly complaining about, and correct me if I'm wrong, was I think he got on the secularism a bit, right? And he took the secular project to be to try to eliminate religion. And so he was depicting a future world, a future possible world where there's no or almost no religion left, and there's this secular world of only materialism in the double sense that there's only matter and we only think materialistically, and he was trying to scare you.
He was playing
Right. So I think that's what he really meant by project.
There's something implied yesterday in the discussion with him that because as a materialist I only think that there are molecules and laws of physics that for some reason I can't feel love or all these emotions just as much as the other people.
Right.
And it was also implied today. It's that okay, so you cannot feel empathy just as much because it's a composition of chemicals in your head. So,
But you know different.
But that's what I want to say. I mean, whatever he can do as loving is just as much loving as me. It's the same thing. It's an equivalent.
I want to chime in here one more thing, because he was guilty of a lot of errors up there, as you detected. He was taking credit for a lot of humanity. And he was condemning the evils of the world are all atheists' fault. But he was guilty of a cognitive bias that's known as confirmation bias. And that is, you collect and pay attention and cherry pick evidence that confirms your belief. and you disregard or ignore or omit contra evidence. So this is the basis of racism. This is the basis of any kind of ism. And if you notice, he brought up the Atheist Project because he had this stereotype of, and when Matt was contradicting that, he said, well, but you are different. You know, we could have a beer or something. You know. So, in other words, you don't represent that thing. So let me finish my point. You know? So this confirms a bias and allows the person to not think and not be sensitive to evidence.
It implies that this is boogeyman atheist that we haven't actually seen. That
Which was Matt's point.
Well, and it's insensitivity to the evidence of the sort that you know we have spoken of here. That in fact, you know, secularism is of huge benefit. You know, civilizations that go secular the fastest benefit the most collectively. So he's just blind. He's got blinders on.
This kind of confirmation bias, it reminds me of an aspect in many discussions about religion, where I'm speaking on one level. I'm talking about from a philosophical perspective, from the doctrinal perspective. What are the moral implications? As we were doing with, what's the moral implications of the real world? And so the perception on the other side is that you have now listed a negative of their religion, and they can counter this by citing something positive that their religion has done. It's another take on this same thing, where when you're in this discussion, the next thing you hear is, yes, but religion has given us art and education and beauty. Yeah, and so what? If your best argument for religion is that it's not all bad, you've lost.
You mentioned music quite a lot.
Yeah, I like music. And actually, my love of music, and theater and things like that was an instrumental aspect of understanding what I had previously believed. Because really quickly, when I was a Southern Baptist and I was convinced that I felt the presence of the Holy Spirit or something like that, this is an undeniable feeling, and everyone around you is saying, yep, that's the Holy Spirit, and you feel it. Then what happens when you go out into the world and you start getting similar feelings about secular music and secular things that are not supposed to be providing those? When you're hearing about things that are music that is clearly antithetical to what you were taught, and you get the same goosebumps because there's a passion there. As soon as you realize that this is a function of who we are and what my brain does, all of a sudden you can grasp that you were deluded before.
He's been waiting a whole long time. No, right here.
All right. For the sake of this line of questioning, let's just entertain that everyone here is in fact an atheist, that we all have no belief in or use for a God, and in fact God does not exist. Starting from that place where we live in this system where God does not exist, morality, as I'm understanding from the arguments that have been presented, is defined as anything that preserves the human race and promotes the well-being of the human race, correct?
It's the position that I'm advocating.
Until the robots take over.
So my question moving further off of that, if in fact there is no God whatsoever, there really is no argument for human superiority in any way. Every organism would be equally valid in a system where...
No, that doesn't follow at all. No. It might be the case that value might be in some way proportional to the cognitive capacity to suffer and to know that you're suffering.
Yeah, that's just one example.
And there's other ways of going with it.
Yeah,
I was going to talk from the whole perspective of someone who believes that humankind is a scourge on the earth, which is a belief I've encountered. I don't know how often you've
that is an appeal to the natural order that I would reject.
Okay.
That's the
that there is some
dark side of the God design. That there's some sort of nature design that's just as false and disproven.
Nature had a goal, and
I tend to think that humanity is a problem for the planet. I would tend to think it's caused so much problems for other creatures.
Yeah. Overpopulation.
So, anything? Would you believe that anything that causes preservation and the growth of the human race could be an arguably immoral action in light of that belief?